There are some movies that upon their release get so much hate, they seem doomed to be forgotten about forever. Hereditary falls into this category. When it comes to horror films, there's perhaps no greater insult than being branded a fake. The word conjures up images of cheap jump scares, silly premises, and blatant attempts to cash in on an unsuspecting audience. To many, this is what Hereditary is all about. There's no denying the film is slow-paced and doesn't play by the rules. It takes its time to set up characters, themes, and a disturbing atmosphere before suddenly veering off course. Some viewers were expecting a typical ghost story, but instead they got something more sinister and disturbing. This has led many to label it as fake. But is it? Are the elements of supernatural horror merely fake? Does the term apply to the acting and direction? Or could it be that Hereditary isn't fake at all, but rather a brilliantly crafted work of psychological horror? Before we can begin, let me explain how this channel works. We'll be breaking down the plot of the film and analyzing why it isn't fake. If you enjoy stories like this, please consider following for more updates. Hereditary begins with Ellen, the reclusive grandmother of the Graham family, passing away. Annie, Ellen's daughter, flies back home with her 2 children. Peter and Charlie. She is shocked to learn that her mother died in an elaborate seance with a cult. Naturally, she brushes it off as another one of her mother's weird hobbies. Unfortunately, it will soon become clear that Ellen was involved in something far more dangerous. At the funeral, Annie learns that her mother had written letters addressed to each member of the family. In Ellen's final letter, Annie discovers the horrifying truth about her mother's legacy. Ellen reveals that she has been the high priestess of a secret cult for many years. Their mission was to summon the Demon King Payman through an ancient ritual known as the Turn of the Tide. By sacrificing a member of their bloodline during the next full moon, they would be able to bring him forth. Annie is horrified by what she just learned. She feels a deep sense of guilt, believing that she should have seen the signs. In the weeks leading up to the ritual, strange symbols appear painted on walls around the house. As the full moon approaches, Charlie behaves in strange ways. She clucks her tongue uncontrollably and draws disturbing pictures of the occult. She also seems to stare at everyone without blinking, unnerving them with her eerie gaze. One night, Peter, Annie's teenage son, takes Charlie out for ice cream. On the way home, Peter accidentally hits a pedestrian with the car. He panics, but Charlie convinces him to drive off. They try to cover up the hit and run, but it's clear that Charlie is acting strangely. She didn't seem to care about the woman they just hit, even going as far as to say that she deserved it. On the night of the full moon, things come to a head. Annie is haunted by visions of her mother, who seems to be whispering secrets to her from the shadows. Overwhelmed with a sense of dread, she goes to bed, only to be awoken by strange noises. As she investigates, she hears voices coming from the basement. She calls out for Peter and Charlie, but there's no answer. Suddenly, a rocking chair begins moving on its own. Startled, Annie runs back upstairs. Meanwhile, Charlie has snuck out of the house. Peter finds her wandering the streets and brings her home. The next morning, Annie discovers that Charlie and Peter have both disappeared. Terrified, she calls the police and tells them her children are missing. As she speaks, however, it becomes clear that something has changed. Charlie's voice seems to be coming from Peter's mouth. Over the next few days, Annie becomes increasingly concerned about Peter's behavior. At first, he seems normal, but as time goes on, he becomes distant and withdrawn. He also begins drawing disturbing pictures, eerily similar to those drawn by Charlie. Annie is desperate to find out what happened to her son, and seeks help from a medium named Joan. During the session, Joan tells Annie that her mother was involved in dark magic, and that Charlie is in danger. She warns Annie that the only way to protect her children is to break the bloodline. Meanwhile, Peter has become increasingly violent. He attacks his classmate and is suspended from school. Annie is forced to take him to a psychiatrist, where he claims that he has been hearing voices telling him to kill himself. The doctor believes that Peter is suffering from schizophrenia and prescribes him medication, but Annie knows that something else is going on. As the days pass, Peter's condition worsens. He becomes more violent and erratic, and Annie is terrified that he might hurt himself or someone else. Joan, the medium, advises Annie to perform a ritual to break the bloodline and sever ties with her mother's past. But as Annie prepares for the ritual, Peter confronts her, demanding to know what she's doing. Annie tells him the truth about their family's legacy, and Peter is shocked. He realizes that he has been possessed by the demon and that Charlie is now a vessel for King Payment. In a desperate attempt to save her son, Annie performs the ritual, but as she does, Peter becomes increasingly agitated. He attacks her and tries to stop the ritual, but Annie continues on. The ritual is successful, and Peter is freed from the demon's grasp. However, it comes at a terrible cost. The demon enters Annie's body, and she is levitated into the air. She struggles to free herself from its grip, but it's no use. The demon is too strong, and it eventually overpowers her. Annie screams as the demon takes control of her. With a final surge of strength, she manages to grab a piano wire and brings it down on her own head, decapitating herself. The demon is free, and it wastes no time in wreaking havoc on the town. Peter, horrified by what he has just witnessed, flees the house and runs into the woods. As the sun rises, he is found by the police and taken into custody. They question him about the events of the previous night, but he is unable to provide any answers. The last thing he remembers is seeing Charlie enter his body. As Peter is led away, we see Charlie standing on a hill overlooking the town. She is joined by the other members of the cult, and together they chant and celebrate the return of their king. It is clear from the ending that the bloodline has successfully delivered a new host for King Pain. Now that the ritual is complete, he can possess whoever he wants and do whatever he pleases. This raises the question of what happens next. Will Peter be able to resist the demon's influence? Or will he become its new vessel? Only time will tell. So is Hereditary fake? Considering everything we've covered, the answer should be clear. The film is anything but fake. While it may not rely on jump scares and gore, it more than makes up for it with its disturbing atmosphere and psychologically complex characters. If you want to see a truly terrifying movie, then Hereditary is definitely worth a watch. Just don't blame us when you can't sleep at night. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider following for more content. We'll see you next time.